Hey everyone, today for another vlog. I realized I really enjoy making this more than I think. I always feel a bit apprehensive before I start, but I always enjoy after I'm done. So note for myself that it's great. So a vlog today on the types of tiredness, and I'm making this because I literally just experienced the shift of what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna, it's something really important I've learned about my sort of interaction with my body and the other parts. So like the model that I've run right now is that we could broadly speaking, it's not super, every distinction is a bit blurry, especially when it comes to personal experience. But we can broadly speaking divide the personal experience into three things. So we have the body, the mind, and the emotions. So the mind is more like the computer, right? It's not like consciousness. It's more like the thought, right? Like the cognitive aspect of yourself. And perhaps we could add like a fourth one. We could say it's like consciousness or it's like the soul. I'm not sure, but like the most practical is just to focus on the first three. I would say body, mind, and emotions. And in this context, it's really interesting to know that they really have like different types of dynamics and especially at different types of tiredness. So that's going to be the theme of today's vlog. Different types of tiredness. So the key observation that I had and I've really like hammered down because now I've just experienced the shift that I just had is that you, one of them can be tired. Even like one sub aspect of them is it's a bit even weirder. Can be tired, but but the other parts are not tired. So like my specific example, which I just felt, is that my eyes get tired because I look at screens a lot, but the rest of my body doesn't get tired. My mind doesn't necessarily get tired, and my emotions are mostly just fine. I would say most of my tiredness comes from my eyes, so that's one part of my body, right? And my emotions, not so much the rest, right? So what this means is that this has a really important implication, right? It's not just it's not just babbling about specific. The implication is that when I feel tired, the right move to do is not to take a nap. It's actually just to like decompress, relax, stay awake, right? Like taking a nap can be tiring if you don't need to sleep. At least it is for me, and that's why naps have always been bad, and I've just stopped like recently taking naps. What it means that if I just like basically just close my eyes and like relax, I I feel a lot better than if I take a nap. But so like the solution is very different depending on like the specific types of tiredness. Yeah, which is why I really want to make a video on this because it's really important to understand right that those three types of tiredness they're not the same, and as a result, the solution is not the same. So like emotional tiredness, we could say it's a bit like feeling overwhelmed with your emotions. Right? Like there's a lot of stuff to process. Like you feel like you need to express it, and maybe you feel like you need to I don't know, maybe cry a bit or like just shout like just shake, just do something silly, right? We tend to be so like emotionally repressed. But typically, you want to do like bioenergetics or like that type of stuff, right? Like just moving your body around in a way that like allows you to release it or express your emotions, that kind of stuff, right? So for me, it's been a combination of like shaking and breathing exercises. So like these are really the two my go-to. But yeah, so I think screaming and like that kind of thing is also useful, right? Like being vocal is especially useful. I notice. I don't really. What I tend to do is I tend to do like a combination of like release and then meditation. Right? I don't meditate first immediately, but only after I've like been able to release my emotions through some kind of shaking or screaming or yeah, that kind of stuff. Right? Like just very vigorous type of bioenergetic work. Um, Interesting to note that like tension can also be stored in different parts of your we could say the emotional body, right? So like the emotional body sort of maps with the physical body and sort of a bit confusing, but like I noticed that I have like a lot of tension in my face, for instance. Probably because once again I spend so much time on like in my head that there's not a whole lot of tension in the other parts. Kind of, but mostly because I'm neglected. But like, there's a lot of tension in my face, right? So like around my eyes and on my like in my jaw, the two sides of my jaw. It's really interesting the way the tension is not uniform at all. It's really the same thing with tension applies as what I've just said about tennis. But it's not uniform. It's really nice to be able to pinpoint where it is found in your body. So that was emotional tiredness. So mental tiredness, on the other hand, is something like just having a lot on your mind. Right, like we have a lot of good metaphors for that, which are actually very real experiences when you can see them. It's I feel like metaphors tend to be very real once you can really experience them. When you have a lot on your mind, yeah, you just are tired. Right? There's a lot to process, there's a lot to think about. You tend to worry and all that, and of course, um, as you might notice, like mental and emotional and all that, they're not disjoint. Right? Like if you're mentally tired, it's probably because there's a bit of an emotional component as well. If you're emotionally tired, there's also a bit of a physical component, right? So like they're not separate. Um, but yeah, mental tiredness has to do with like the basically like a cognitive overload, right? A lot of stuff to process, a lot of stuff to think about, and in that regard, it's good to have activities where you don't think, where you don't have to think as much, right? So yeah, that's actually been a pretty cool example I've been given lately. Is that like the importance of meditative work that sort of happens naturally has sort of like dwindled. So in other words, because of like because of like technology, we tend to do a lot less like repetitive work, right? So like even something as simple as like doing the dishes was a very something that happens naturally from just living, and because it has been sort of gone, like we sort of lose this relationship with very basic repetitive work that allows us to wind down. And I think that's probably why people are so tired, is that they do a lot of things but they don't really process it, right? So um in my case it's more emotional processing that I need, but we could definitely imagine like the mental case where like someone just on their phone all the time, they're just getting all this information and they're never like processing. And once again, the repetitive meditative work such as doing the dishes or just taking a walk, that kind of thing, or like they are really important to allow you to wind down and to stay sharp in your mind. And you know and so physical tiredness is kind of the most obvious one, but even then it's interesting, right, that there are different parts of your body that could be tired in different manners. Like for instance, there's a difference between like having a lack of sleep, right, like not having slept well, which is of course influenced by the other ones. But like typically the people who don't sleep well, they have a very agitated mind, that they have very troubled emotions and all that. But people who don't sleep well, it's not the same thing as like having sore muscles, right? So like those are two different types of tiredness. Again, like energy versus muscle, and it's really important to understand about the physical body, like physical energy, is that energy, it does not work like a battery. Like it really does not work like a battery at all. Energy in the human body is a it's an adaptive phenomenon. It's like anti-fragile rather than like a battery. Right? So a battery is something that you discharge, or like through using it, and then you recharge it. Um, but if the human body worked like a battery, right? If human energy worked like a battery, it would seem to imply then that people who exercise a lot are tired all the time, which in a way they kind of are, but in an important way. I think people who work out a lot, they sleep more and all that, but it's not true that they're tired all the time. Right? In fact, like people who like exercise moderately and like know how to not keep it under moderate boundaries, under moderate bounds, they have tons of energy. They have way more energy than people who don't move, right? So energy is an adaptive phenomenon. It's an anti-fragile mechanism. The more you move your body, the more you have energy to expand, right? The more you move your muscles, and the more you, uh, you know, you know, I'm not sure what the word is, but the more you like use them, the stronger you become, right? If you do it well, right? So not necessarily always the case, but if you like do it in a correct fashion, then they become stronger. So like yeah, that's kind of like an overview of like the three things, like emotions, mind, and body. And so in my case, it's definitely like emotions mainly, a bit of mental, definitely. Kind of bad at dealing with like stray thoughts. I tend to be very like in my mind, obviously. But I think it's interesting to note that like the reason why I tend to be so much in my mind is because I am emotional. Like I need time to process emotion. I was like it's kind of interesting to think that, and I think that's true for a lot of people actually. A lot of people are quote unquote intellectual because honestly they're just scared to deal with the world head on. So they prefer to turn to the mind because the mind provides like a simulation of reality which can be controlled. The simulation of reality is of course it's a simulation, so it's not accurate, it's not true, it's not real, but it's something that you can control, right? And it's probably why I used to like plan so much. I used to be such an obsessive planner, I would be like even scared of like playing a video game if I didn't like practice it uh by myself in like this tutorial or whatever. Like, I would just be afraid to like play a video game online and just jump in with and like maybe be bad. That's how like scared and I still am to a pretty important extent of just just doing things and letting reality dictate what happens. There's a huge part of me that really wants to plan, and this planning comes from it comes from fear. It doesn't come from rationality. It comes from fear, and that's where like the mind sort of arises as the sort of like desire to feel safe. Right? So like the mind becomes the emotional solution, so to speak. And so yeah, those three parts they're really important to sort of relate to, I would say, and because they're so different, right? And because our society is so in the mind, right? It's so much in the mind. It's borderline schizoid, honestly. Like not schizophrenic, but maybe kind of, but like schizoid in the sense that it's just stuck in the mind. Doesn't like it. It sort of like treats everything else as something that needs to be dealt with the mind, right? Like as if like the emotions are bugs that we need to resolve, right? Like that type of very like pseudo rational attitude that emotions are just irrational. Like that's just complete bullshit. Right? Like only someone who's just really scared of feeling their emotions would say stuff like that, right? So yeah, those are really. I think that's a very helpful model that has been, and it's been very helpful the last weeks because the last couple of weeks because my attitude towards my tiredness has really changed. Has been great, right? So when I feel tired, I just close my eyes, and honestly, even doing stuff when I close my eyes feels a lot more energizing than if I were to like take a nap. So it's very interesting, right? So I would highly encourage anyone listening to this to like sort of really pinpoint the type of tiredness you have, or like really pinpoint, like what are your strengths, right? In general, like are you more of a mind person? Are you more of an emotion person? Are you more of a body person? That type of stuff. Yeah. So it's really cool to have like this type of general distinction, I would say. Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. I just feel like I've just solved the question I had, which is, like solved the nature of tiredness. I guess I haven't solved it, but I've got like an 80-20 map. Right? It's a great map for like the situations I encounter, and I'm very glad that I've been able to like sort of resolve this issue because okay, here's the background, right? Uh, Before the very first video of this channel, I had like 100 vlogs. There was this channel I said to myself. I put them in private, just because I showed myself my face and I didn't want to edit, and I don't want to right now. Um, and also because they were honestly kind of bad. Like a lot of them, like they were like I was doing them mostly daily, so a lot of the times I didn't really have anything new to say. I was just talking about the same problem over and over. And the problem I kept talking to in those 100 vlogs was like I think like a good 40% at least were talking about tiredness in some way. I was like, oh my god, I'm so tired. I don't know what to do. And I feel like the way, and it felt like dealing with tiredness was even more tiring than the tiredness itself. Right? Like this sort of tiredness loop. But now I literally just solved it. I literally just solved it for myself. What I have right now, not completely, not completely because there's still a sense that I would like to like produce more stuff. I would like to create more stuff, and I don't feel like I feel like it's kind of tiring to create stuff, but I feel like now I have a much better foundation to address the tiredness, and I don't feel so overwhelmed with life. Yeah, like having time in silence, having time closing my eyes helps a lot to process stuff. So yeah, that's about everything else for today. Thank you for listening. I will see you next time.